Hello, hello, hello. Welcome and good afternoon. Whether you're joining us live or watching the recording, we're delighted to welcome you to the Municipal EV Readiness Toolkit 9-month program, Electric Police Vehicles Workshop featuring Westport, Connecticut's Tesla police vehicle. We're going to hear directly today from Chief Kaskinas and Officer Sampson, and we'll also learn about the economics of Westport's Tesla police vehicle from Barry Kresh. My name is Daphne Dixon. I'm Executive Director of Live Green Connecticut, a nonprofit organization with offices in Norwalk, Connecticut, whose mission is to integrate the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in municipalities, businesses, and communities through metric-driven, results-oriented programs. I'm also coordinator of Connecticut Southwestern Area Clean Cities Coalition, which is a program supported by the U.S. Department of Energy's Vehicle Technologies Office. There are more than 75 coalitions around the country, which includes 3 coalitions that work in collaboration right here in Connecticut. We're very fortunate today to have with us also Craig Peters, who is the coordinator of Capital Clean Cities. Paul Wessel and Dan Chacha are the coordinator and co-coordinator of Greater New Haven Clean Cities Coalition. And all 3 coalitions are collaborative partners in the Municipal EV Readiness Toolkit program. Clean Cities Coalitions fosters the economic and environmental and energy security of the United States by working locally to advance affordable domestic transportation, fuels, energy efficient mobility systems, and other fuel-saving technologies and practices. I'm joined today by our amazing team, Alyssa Murphy, Live Green and Connecticut Southwestern Area Clean Cities Program Director, Aidan Bennett, Municipal EV Readiness Toolkit 9-month Program Director, Sean McQuaid, Legislative Liaison and Research Analyst, Jenna D'Arcy, Outreach, Idle Reduction, and GIS Specialist. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for all the work you do to make these programs run so smoothly. Thank you so much. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, United Illuminating, Connecticut Green Bank, South Central Regional Council of Governments, MetroCog, Connecticut Sierra Club, and Connecticut Energy Network. We would also like to recognize and thank the police fleets that are participating in today's workshop. So thank you all so much for coming. And I do encourage everyone to come on screen if you can. We really try to make these workshops as personal and interactive as possible. So if you can come on screen, we actually love that. So please do so if you can. This session is being recorded, and we will send out a link to the recording to all registered participants. Before I turn the stage over to our amazing guests, I would like to provide you with just a little background regarding the Municipal EV Readiness program and how it came into fruition. So in 2019 and 2020, Live Green Connecticut received funding from United Illuminating to conduct some EV readiness studies in the towns of Fairfield and in Hamden. And what we discovered in doing these studies was really the most valuable part in the studies in a lot of ways were the conversations that we had with the municipal decision makers. These conversations really sparked different ideas for projects and ways that municipalities could become EV ready. So all those studies are great, and it's wonderful to have metrics and to have a starting point. What we really realized it was the interaction in doing these studies that provided the most benefit, and we're going to move things forward. Studies are great, but you really need to have people working together and talking about, what does EV readiness really look like and what do we need to do? So in the fall of 2020, we took this study and we transformed it into the Municipal EV Readiness Toolkit 12-week program. So it was an interactive and online EV readiness program. And it attracted over 200 participants from 60 municipalities from across the state. And one of the things that we heard at the conclusion of that 12-week program was that municipalities wanted more support. They wanted more time. They needed more than 12 weeks to put EV readiness projects into place. So we have put together for this year a 9-month program, Municipal EV Readiness Toolkit 9-month program. And in those programs, we do what's called clarity sessions with the municipalities that participate. And we go through the different areas of EV readiness, and really every municipality who is participating in that program, they're all interested in electrifying their police fleet. Every municipality is interested, and they all want to know what's going on in Westport. So before we introduce our special guests, I did just want to turn it over to our team, who's going to provide all of us with a little bit of framing for today's workshop. So I will turn the microphone over to Alyssa Murphy.
Thanks, Daphne. So Connecticut signed an MOU to reach 125,000 electric vehicles by 2025 and 30% electrification of medium and heavy duty vehicles by 2030. Connecticut has about 17,000 electric vehicles right now. So that means we need 108,000 more EVs to reach our goal, which is why it's so important that fleets begin to transition to electric. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to discuss police vehicle idle reduction.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. So we've been delving into vehicle idle reduction, and we found that three key parts to it is assessing the impact from it, understanding our role, and being able to see what possibilities there are for adopting technology. So for police cars specifically, as well as other emergency vehicles, they're often exempt from laws that limit engine idling. A cruiser idles about 60% of the time during normal operation and uses about 21% of its total fuel while parked. A study at Argonne Lab said that while the engine provided 250 horsepower, together all of the accessories needed less than 2 horsepower, which is a significant difference. So the goal is to save fuel and reduce emissions. So there's 3 main technologies encouraged by the DOE that aid with this for police vehicles. There's power management systems. This allows the car battery to power auxiliaries when the engine is off. There's another option, which is heat recovery device, which circulates coolant from the warmed engine to heat the vehicle after the engine has been turned off. And there's a battery auxiliary power unit, also known as a battery APU. And this stores power when the engine is running. And then when the engine is off, it will supply some power to the vehicle's electrical devices for about 4 hours. So here you can see just idling and the amounts there with fuel use, and then below it, it's a little bit more of it's a decrease there with fuel use, and it would also reduce emissions. And the APU is right there at the bottom in the trunk. So I will now pass this over to Sean, who will talk about international police fleets. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk briefly on international and national electric police fleets. And so police in Thailand added 7 Tesla Model 3s to their fleet of patrol vehicles this past year, and they came fully equipped with police gear. And down below, you can see their entire patrol fleet, and it is quite impressive. I believe they have over 30 electric vehicles in their police fleet, but just adding 7 this year just makes it all the more important. And then so in Western Europe, the police of the Czech Republic have an incredible 38 Hyundai Ioniq electric cars. And so I think it's just really great to see this on an international level. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about some national electric police fleets. Yeah, so here in the US, in Bargersville, Indiana, their police department purchased 1 Tesla Model 3 vehicle, patrol vehicle this past year. And although the initial purchase was more expensive than their former vehicle, which was the Dodge Charger, the lower fuel costs and 0 maintenance factor eventually saves the department money. And that's why so many departments are moving towards this electrification of their patrol fleets. And then so lastly, on the right side, we have in Clovis, California, and then 2 years ago, they adopted 7 more 0 electric motorcycles. And now Clovis has become the largest police fleet with 0 electric motorcycles in the United States. So I think it's just a great factor to see this come to fruition on a national and international level. We're seeing these electric vehicles be implemented across the world and across the states. So yeah, so I think it's great to see. And now I'd just like to turn it back over to Daphne to introduce our speakers.
Thank you so much, Sean and team. Great job, everybody. So now we're going to turn it over to Chief Kaskinas and Officer Sampson. So they have amazing bios. We could have a whole workshop on both of them, each one separately. They've really served Westport and the state in remarkable ways. So Alyssa has put their bios into the chat, and I encourage you to read their bios. They're extremely impressive men, and we're so grateful for their service and all that you have done. So we're going to give you 10 minutes or so to talk about everything you want to talk about the vehicle and how it's such a team effort. So take it away, gentlemen.
Daphne, good afternoon. It's Fody Kaskinas from the Westport Police Department. I will take a few minutes and turn it over to Officer Sampson. So I have been the police chief since 2016, and I took the fleet over in 2007. Out of all the responsibilities I've given up over the years, I've sort of held on to the fleet for this very reason that we're meeting today, because I saw the need, the desire, and I felt like we did a lot of talking about electrifying fleets. And one of the statements that was made earlier was that there is a lot of interest from departments, municipalities, cities, and towns. And I will tell you, it's a rather large leap, but a worthy one, to go from the interest and actually committing and being part of this. Because not only is there significant savings, we're actually following through in what our communities keep promising they're going to do. But all we've been doing is moving out the dates without meeting the standards that we say we're going to meet. A little history on us. We started in 2007, 2007 with 2 hybrid Priuses. What we did is we replaced Crown Victoria LTDs that were actually on the road, and for an 8-hour shift, believe it or not, this is going to hurt a little bit. We were burning as much as 11 to 12 gallons of fuel for an 8-hour shift. During the first generation, the 2007s, for the first 3 years, we were not switching over to the gasoline option. We literally could have gone to fully electric at the time, but there's always the concern of the grid issues. Will we have power during storms? So we felt the dual fuel was a better option for us at the time. Since that time, we've updated the Priuses, and we have the newest generation from 2017 and 2018. We took on a project in 2011 and did solar panels at one of our train stations. The police department oversees the train stations. And since 2012, there hasn't been a single month that we don't sell power back to the utility company. 80% of the train station is powered by solar, and we continue during storms. We're able to run the operation. The buildings are open. The bathrooms are usable. So that within itself has been a success story, but I sort of want to tie it into it because it is part of it. We charge 4 electric vehicles during the daytime outside the train station that's using solar power to charge electric vehicles. So that within itself can show you that if it can be done there, it really can be done just about anywhere, but it takes the commitment from the community and the partners to actually stand together, because to say there was an opposition in 2011 to do solar panels at the train station would have been an understatement. But I can tell you there wasn't a single politician that wasn't at the ribbon cutting, and a single one of them that today doesn't use the numbers that those solar panels are producing. Just to wrap up a little bit, because I know we have limited time, currently the police department has 1 hybrid Ford Explorer. We're entertaining getting a second one, but I'll be very honest with you, because of idle time and the usage, we're not seeing the greatest of savings that one would think with a hybrid vehicle. Certainly nothing compared to the Tesla that is all electric. We have changed our high school security vehicle with a donation. We have a BMW, all electric BMW that's on the lot. It's one of the smallest BMWs, but as you can imagine, other than patrolling the school parking lot, there isn't a high need for a gas-powered vehicle, and there's a charger there that every time the security officers are in the school, the vehicle is charging anyway. We obviously have the 2 newer Priuses. Most recently in the last year was the Tesla that rolled out, and I think Barry and Charlie will speak to some of the successes and how we completely went into this hoping to under-promise and over-deliver, and that goal was certainly met. And most recently, we traded in, I guess is the best way to say it, we traded in a Ford Taurus from 2008 that was being used by the Detective Bureau and burning up quite a bit of fuel when used, with a Honda Clarity. Now we've had the Honda Clarity on the road for about a month and a half. It has not required a single gallon of fuel since that time. The detectives only put anywhere from 40 to 50 miles a day on the max. And we're finding that that vehicle is going out every day using electric power only. So those are some of the successes. There's certainly a financial side, the savings to it to the community. There's certainly the goal of some of the numbers you saw earlier. I think they were presented by Jenna. And that's really where we are. I will turn it over to Charlie in the sense that the partnerships have grown much bigger. The partnerships have grown with Tesla. The partnerships have grown with some of our other partners. And the technical side of it, while it may seem challenging, it's also very rewarding to see the amount of people that are invested into what we're doing here. And I will turn it over to Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. My name is Charlie Sampson with the Westport Police Department, and I handle most of the IT issues over here. This was an issue that the chief came to me and said, "Hey, I have an idea," and we sat down, we discussed it, and I thought it was a great idea. So our Tesla is a Model 3 Performance that we currently have now. In policing, we have our own challenges. Extra equipment that we have to add into the vehicle, use time of the vehicle. But what we did was we decided to take our time with this vehicle. You know, obviously the benefits are going to come out when Barry talks to you in a few minutes, but I can tell you that I've had more third-party vendors, your Motorola's, your Raycor camera systems, Whalen Engineering, that have gotten interested in actually trying to work with the vehicle itself with the help from Tesla engineers. So we have a direct line to the Tesla engineers. So if a third-party company comes to us and needs something, I can get on the phone, shoot a quick email off to one of their head engineers, and they try to work on it for us. You know, some of the small things we had to overcome where lighting in the Tesla turns off after 45 seconds. Even if you turn it on the automatic on or the manual on, it only stays on for 60 seconds. Tesla has a software update coming out, I believe this month, that if the officer turns it on, the lights stay on all the time. Very important for us, especially at nighttime when we're trying to do our work. Another great thing was a company out of Maryland, Raycor Systems. They're working on developing a program. We currently today spend approximately $18,000 to put cameras, license plate reader systems on our vehicles. Raycor Systems is actually trying to utilize the cameras that the Tesla comes with to work with their software in the Tesla computer without needing yet another computer in the vehicles like we do in all of the ICE vehicles that we have on the road today. I've been approached by Motorola. I am trying to get Motorola, who is one of the largest companies when it comes to police fleets, handle radios. They have their own software packages. They have their own LPR reader systems. But I've started conversations with them and with Tesla so that maybe Motorola and Tesla can get together, because once again, the Tesla comes with a computer. So why am I adding another? Motorola would love to be the first company to exclusively interface with the Tesla computer so that an officer doesn't have to switch between a couple of different screens. Whalen Engineering, you know, an officer, if you've ever been in a police car, we have to throw switches and press buttons for sirens and lights. Whalen Engineering would like to sit down and also integrate with the Tesla computer. And the chief was very fortunate. That car is being used today, for the most part, 16 hours a day and probably doing about 100 miles for the 2 shifts that it runs back to back. But we are also utilizing this new technology to try to take some of the extra added equipment that we do on a day-to-day basis and move it into the Tesla platform. And we're lucky to have some of these third-party vendors that are more than willing to come step up to the plate and actually integrate it for us, which in the long run will lower the cost of putting these vehicles into your fleet.
All right. Thank you both so much for your presentations and really for your extraordinary leadership. It's amazing what you're doing. And, you know, we just can't thank you enough for really modeling the way for all the other police fleets in Connecticut and really across the country to do exactly what you're doing. Really extraordinary work. It's now my pleasure to introduce Barry Kresh of the Electric Vehicle Club of Connecticut. Barry Kresh is a media research and marketing consultant by day and an environmental ninja and superhero by night. He's been a club member and an EV owner since 2012. His participation in the club includes doing the analytics, such as the interactive EV dashboard, tracking EV adoption in Connecticut, tracking the performance of the cheaper rebate purchase incentive, and whatever data he can get his hands on. He also writes and manages the website, has published multiple op-ed pieces supporting EV-friendly policy, and is frequently used as a resource for information about the state of EVs in Connecticut by the press and others. You know, Barry is just an extraordinary leader, and we are just so delighted and honored to have him with us here today. So with that, Barry, the microphone and stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that introduction, Daphne. As you can, I've shared my screen, so I hope everyone can see it. And you can see the photo of the two handsome gentlemen with the police car. Charles was my primary counterpart with the police for this project, and he was great to work with. So as you can see, this is a long-range all-wheel drive performance Tesla Model 3. And what I am about to present has been written up with a good amount of detail in a 2,500 plus word blog post. And that is the link to the blog post that's down here at the left, which I have also repeated on the final slide. And it's, so if you need it as a reference for more detail or a refresher, it's live on the website. The first time I read about a police department buying a Tesla was when Fremont, California bought a Model S. That was in 2014, before there even was a Model 3. Then Bargersville, Indiana bought a 3, but to the best of my knowledge, did not fully customize it. Westport was the first to take that step. So a couple of things. Because Westport did a complete customization, they were given some first mover discounts. The two companies that do this work for Westport treated this project as R&D. Consequently, as we move through the charts, you will see two Teslas. One is the car that the police bought, which is referred to as the Pilot. The other is a financially modeled Tesla that doesn't have the benefit of the discounts to have a better comparison with the Ford Explorer, which is the incumbent model of police cruiser. The other thing is that while Fremont and Bargersville released some data comparing the savings from using electricity instead of gasoline, I felt there was an opportunity to add value to the discussion by doing a deep dive into the financials and just looking at everything: purchase, customization, operation, and maintenance. Those of us in the EV world always talk about total cost of ownership. EVs are more expensive to buy, but less expensive to run and maintain. And that takes a particular kind of meaning in this instance with the customization and the intensity of police usage. Now, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on this slide. I know it's word heavy, but it's basically the spec. You can see the columns for the Pilot and the next Tesla and the Explorer. For the Pilot, the items color-coded in blue were provided at no cost, and this represented a savings of over $14,000. The other area for savings arose from what Charlie was discussing, having to do with repurposing technology. Now, he mentioned several things at several different companies. The only one that I have incorporated into the analysis, because it's the closest, is the license plate reader, where we know that incorporating the Tesla technology will save $10,000 from $18,000 to $8,000. It's the single largest cost item in the customization. And while the residents of the town were mostly supportive of the police buying this car, there were some naysayers who felt that it was a waste of taxpayer money. But with the discounts and savings, the fact is that the Pilot was never not going to save money. The bigger question is what happens going forward. Now, there are two items that are unique to the Tesla. If you buy an EV, you need a place to charge it. And so the police spent $1,000 to buy and install a charging station. As Charlie said, the Tesla is doing 2 8-hour shifts and charging overnight. I assumed that a future vehicle would be similarly used, and it would not be possible to share charging facilities, and that this equipment will need to be purchased for any future EVs. So that's why it's in the model Tesla. There may be some potential economies of scale with dual port units, but I did not try to take that into account. The other one is that the Ford comes with a spare tire and the Tesla does not. So there was an $800 expense to buy one for the Tesla. The item in the second column in blue, the prisoner transport partition, was not included in the Pilot because it was not needed for the duties of the vehicle. But I added it in here in the interest of having a cleaner comparison with the Ford, which does have one. Now, there are things on the maintenance list that apply to both vehicles, but at different frequencies. Regenerative braking, not just in the Tesla, but in all electric vehicles, means that the engine slows down the vehicle and restores some of the kinetic energy to the battery. This means that there is much less wear on the friction brakes, which are mainly needed for sudden stops. The regen can bring the Tesla to a full stop fairly quickly. As a result, the Tesla is forecasted to have the brakes serviced once every 2 years, as opposed to twice annually for the Ford. That's the documented service rate for the Ford. The Tesla and the Ford are outfitted with the same tires, but due to the superior suspension of the Tesla, the police are observing less wear on the Tesla tires. So the tires are being replaced once per year in the Tesla as opposed to twice per year with the Ford. And then there are a bunch of things that apply only to the Ford. You know, oil changes, catalytic converter, water pump, alternator, all those things that a Tesla or any battery electric vehicle just doesn't have. And finally, I want to call out the service life. The documented service life of a Ford Explorer on patrol duty is 4 years, but the Tesla is projected to stick around for 6 years. This underscores the general point that EVs last a long time with low maintenance, and this has obvious financial ramifications. So these are the comparable purchase costs, $52,300 versus $37,000. And these are the customization costs. I don't want to get too hung up on the individual numbers, but I will point out that with the discounts on the pilot vehicle and the technology savings, there was roughly a $25,000 savings in customizing the pilot vehicle. So already we've more than made up the purchase differential. In the next vehicle, without the discounts, the savings is about $8,200, counting the $10,000 from the license plate reader, offset partially by the expense of the charging station and the spare tire. So about $8,200. Then we get to the ongoing costs. So I modeled this out through 4 years. And so each year is cumulative. Now the largest, all of the colored bands are consistent in what they represent across bars and charts. And the big one is the light blue band. And this is the cost of gasoline or electricity. And as you can see, the cost of powering the Tesla on electricity is less than half of the cost of the gas for the Ford. And by the time you get to year 4, when all of these other items start to pile up in the Ford cumulative maintenance, you can see that you have a substantial savings of roughly $32,000 less than the Ford. In the next slide, I've created subtotals by the categories that I've just discussed: purchase, customization, and ongoing costs, so we can have a comparative total for each vehicle. Now, if you look at the different colors in the slides, you will see that the dark blue and the light blue remain the same through all of the years, because these are the fixed costs to purchase and customize each of the vehicles. So the only one that's changing is the ongoing cost, which is represented in orange. You can see that the $44.3 thousand in year 4 for the Ford Explorer ties back to the $44,000 in the ongoing cost charts. All of the charts are internally consistent. I checked them very carefully. But you can see that the cumulative cost is a lot lower for the 2 Teslas. And in the next slide, I just lined up the total cost for all the vehicles year by year, side by side. And in this chart, you can see how much money the pilot saved in year 1. And you don't have to worry about doing the math because I do it later in the presentation. But one thing to point out is that even with the modeled Tesla, you're already ahead of the game in the first year, saving about $1,000, right? And then by the fourth year, you've saved roughly $24,000. Now, all of the slides up to this point have looked at the information on a cash basis. But I pointed out earlier that there is a differential in service life. And so I created another set of slides that take that into account. So I'm amortizing the fixed costs and the service life by dividing those numbers by the number of years in the service life of the vehicle. And when you do that, it has a pretty big impact, as you can imagine. So instead of the 52,300, you get 8,700 per year for the Tesla, 9,300 for the Ford, because that's only being divided by 4 as opposed to 6. And by the time you get to year 4, you can see that the cost of the Ford is the total of 37,000 that you saw in the earlier slide, because the vehicle is now fully amortized. But the Tesla costs are only 35,000 because it's 2/3 amortized. And the same thing applies to the customization. And then the fixed costs are just the ongoing costs rather are just repeated from the earlier slide. Those are ongoing costs, so they're not being amortized. And when I summarize it in a similar chart, this is what the numbers look like. And they are pretty dramatic. You can visually see the large differences between the vehicles. And in the next 2 slides, I will do the math, which is just basically calculating the difference. So this minus this and this minus this for all of the vehicles for all of the years. And that's what it looks like. So for the Pilot, on a cash basis, over the course of 4 years, it saves $41,000. And on an amortized basis, it saves $61,000. For going forward Tesla purchase, the next vehicle has already recouped the cost in year 1 on a cash basis and saves $24,000. And on an amortization basis, it's already in the black by $13,000 after the first year. And by the time we get to the 4th year, it has saved enough money to buy a new Tesla, right? The cost of a new Tesla was $52,000.
Barry, I think Kathleen has her hand up. I don't know if we wanted to do questions now or later, but just wanted to let you know.
What if we could maybe hold off and let Barry finish, if that's okay, Kathleen?
I don't
And then we'll
have-
get right to.
Yeah, I don't have too much longer. I did want to mention,
Sorry.
I did want to mention that so I got all of these costs from the police department. Charles and I reviewed them together. And then after I had compiled all the information, I asked the finance department of the town of Westport to review them. So the numbers have been vetted pretty carefully. The next slide is emissions. Now, I want to stress that this is just tailpipe emissions, and I used publicly available sources because I know how many gallons of fuel in the Ford Explorer were burned. I can calculate the CO2 emissions. I can take the CO2 emissions per gallon and the avoided health costs per gallon and multiply it by the number of gallons. And so just this one vehicle saves 23.5 tons of CO2 emissions over the course of the vehicle's use, as well as $8,763 in, actually this is per year, I'm sorry, it's not 4 years, it's 1 year, and avoided health costs of $8,763. And I just wanted to sum up with some final notes. This project, the police buying a Tesla, was a toe in the water, a pilot, a test. Before the purchase, the police worked with Sustainable Westport and were confident that there would be a payback within 3 years. As you just saw, payback happens in 1 year. And the ramification is very clear. It is possible to move aggressively to replace every internal combustion engine vehicle that turns over in the fleet with an appropriate EV without jeopardizing constrained financial resources. And it's not just about the Tesla. The town of Westport recently acquired 2 Chevy Bolts. As Fody and Charles mentioned, the police have several other plug-in vehicles. It is about reducing emissions while cost effectively matching the vehicle to the use case. And the Tesla was an ideal match in the case of the patrol car. The potential is there to save possibly millions of tons of emissions and millions of dollars over the course of 10 or 15 years. Even better news is that future savings could be greater. In the case of the Tesla, as Charlie said, making greater use of the native technology is still a work in progress. There could be more savings, but since we don't have anything definitive, I didn't want to be overly speculative for the purpose of this model. And the other recent thing that I would like to point out is the new EV rate design issued by the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. They issued the final adjudication on July 14th, but there are still working groups filling in the details. We should know everything at some point in the fourth quarter, and the program takes effect in January. But we do know that it includes subsidies for charging station purchases, make ready if you need to get the power to where the charges are, and discounted electric rates. So I will close by borrowing a Tesla term and say there is no reason not to move forward in ludicrous mode.
Barry, that was spectacular. Really tremendous job. I know we all really appreciate all the time and attention and hard work you put into this presentation, and to really sharing with everybody the financial realities of this, because I think most people, I know a lot of people I've talked to, when you say Tesla police vehicle, they don't really appreciate really what a great value it is and all the cost savings that there are. Kathleen, you always have a great question, and we're always happy to see you. Hampton is such a moving forward so quickly with EV readiness. Please ask your question.
Oh, thank you very much, Daphne. And Barry, what she said, put a check mark after it for me. This is a fabulous set of information. The 6-year amortization for the package that goes in the Tesla, is that really true that all the police equipment has a 6-year life, and we don't have to upgrade the high-use computers, or the camera technology doesn't change over 6 years? That's the kind of question that I'm afraid I'm going to get, and I would just like to know that the package that the police vehicle needs is really has a 6-year lifespan. It's a detail, but do we have thoughts on that?
Well, it's a good question, and I'll answer it and then defer to Charles, who will have more detail on it. But the short answer, as far as I know, is that not only will it last 6 years, but it will last longer for the most part, because the police, when they retire a car from patrol service, they remove the customization and they use it on the next vehicle if they're buying the same vehicle.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Charles, if you have anything to add.
Well, Kathleen, yeah, in the only thing that we probably would end up changing, and not over the 6-year life, is the computer. The computer, as you know, technology changes.
Yep.
You buy one today and it's already outdated, but typically the designers of the packages that we use know that we're not going to be changing our computer every year. So I actually have several computers that were put into our fleet today back in 2011.
Okay.
We matter of fact have just gone out and purchased brand new computers for the whole fleet, because these today are 10 years old. But yes, we do keep a vast majority of the technology in the package in those vehicles and utilize them again in the next replacement vehicle. Perfect.
That's fabulous. And may I have one more question?
Yes, quickly.
Barry, we're going to need we're going to need cost comparisons for other new EV models that are coming out. Are you planning to stay with us and maybe give us some other options?
Well, I have no plans to leave this world anytime soon.
That's great. Thank you. That's all I need. Daphne, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Barry, if you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen, that would be great. And then if you are not on camera, if you could come on camera.
Now you have to look at me though.
That's true. That's wonderful. We love your background too. So, we have an extraordinary opportunity, to really get our questions answered. And I'm just looking at the wonderful list of participants we have here. We've got, some chiefs of police, some lieutenants, some fleet supervisors of police fleets. So I'm really going to encourage you, if you are a police chief or a lieutenant or anybody who's directly working in a police department who's with us today, to just share your comments, maybe your question, or maybe some hesitation around potentially moving forward with an electric police vehicle. So whoever would like to start off with a comment about where they are in their town, that would be great. These workshops are really meant to be interactive, and they're not just meant to share the amazing information, but they're really meant to engage all of us and to engage fleets that have the potential to move forward. And I know you're not shy, so if maybe you're on mute, but we would love to hear from anyone from Wilton, from Stamford, anybody who would like to share. So from anybody who works at a police department, would you just like to say hello and identify yourself and say hello to the group? Whoever is working at a police station? You might be on mute, so you might have to take yourself off mute.
Like we have one comment.
Daphne, it's Fody. This is what we do. If you're asking the cops, we wait and we'll have questions afterwards, and we sit in the back of the room. It's not unusual. So I'm sure I'll get the emails later. And actually, there's some familiar names that we've spoken at length with some of the participants behind the scenes. If I could just add, just so that we have a little bit of time, it's not a one fits all approach. There's a lot of options, and obviously the EV vehicles are growing and the opportunities are growing. I wouldn't recommend that if you have a parking enforcement authority that they necessarily need a Tesla. There's other options, and we certainly taken that approach, because that would be, even though the parking authority makes quite a bit of money for every municipality, there would be no need to spend that kind. But some of the issues that Barry, Charlie, and I can certainly help, and some of the questions were, why do you need a Tesla? That's a luxury vehicle. And why wouldn't you do something else? So while we have time and everybody's here, and we've had this discussion with some, the major issue is we were not going to go backwards on safety ratings. We wanted the same crash ratings and successes, if not better. And that's what we got in the Tesla if it's used as a police car. We want a 5-star crash rating. Additionally, we wanted the performance. It's very important. Sometimes people will say, well, that's a lot of performance. Well, the whole idea behind it is, if an officer is doing radar enforcement or laser enforcement on the side of the road, and I'll use our municipal roads, not necessarily the highway, and a car goes by at 55 miles an hour, which is not unusual. What it would take for time in a Chevy Volt to catch up to that vehicle that's pulling away, it comes down to time and distance. So the quicker the officer can accelerate, it's a shorter amount of time and distance that we're putting the officer, the offender, and the public around them in harm's way. So when you explain that concept to the public, and they quickly realize, do we want to chase somebody and reach speeds of 90 or 80 to catch up to a vehicle that's doing 55, and it will take close to a mile to get there? Or do we want to be able to end that as quickly as possible by pulling behind the vehicle and making that stop as quickly as possible without putting more people in harm's way? So it starts making a lot of sense when you actually break down why we did what we did and what the cost and benefits are. So again, we're willing to help anybody who's looking to navigate through this, but before you jump into it, the commitment needs to be almost like a holistic approach. Your town administration, a majority of your community, your RTMs, your finance, board of finances, there needs to be a buy-in that they're all going to work together, or else there's very little room for success. And that's where we were lucky. If I'm going to applaud anything, and there's many things to applaud about the town and working for this municipality, is that they took a leap of faith that this is going to work. We certainly did our homework. We try to underpromise, but it was an approach that we were all in this together and that there was a common ground for us to succeed. So I can't emphasize that enough.
That's terrific. Thank you so much for that. And I'm still curious to know if we can have some engagement from some of our participants. I know we have a couple of participants who are joining us today who are mechanics, and I know in the past when we've done workshops on electric school buses or other electric vehicles, a lot of times the mechanics have questions about what that means for them. So if you're a mechanic in a working on police vehicles, and now this Tesla comes in. And I opened I'd like to open the mic to any mechanics who are with us today. If you'd like to ask your question specifically, if you have any or any comments, and that would be awesome. And if not, if Bodhi or anyone would like to comment on what happens to the mechanics on staff.
Daphne, that's a tough one. I will tell you, it's sort of humorous because we have a rather large fleet, and we also take care of two other municipalities, our Board of Education and the town hall vehicles, but we have our own police mechanics here on site with a full-time garage. And their biggest fear, and this is funny, is will they have a job down the road? Because there's very little to fix on these cars. And the tech support, whether they just able to, dial in or, through internet connections, do the software upgrades, or their service people that actually show up here. I mean, I think Charlie can tell you that we put in a work order. We don't even have to bring the car anywhere. Somebody shows up here and does the work that's necessary on the car. So as far as the mechanics, so far I have a very close relationship with them. The tires, the brakes, they can't believe the less wear, the effect, how more mileage we're getting both of the tires and brakes. And again, they're very pleased, but cautious at the same time.
Do you have any, do you have a vision for, at some point, how many police vehicles do you have in the fleet there in Westport?
It varies significantly, and there's some vehicles that we won't be able to replace. I mean, we have some old Humvees, we have some transport vehicles because we're in flood zones.
Sure.
Vehicles like that.
Light duty, just as far as light duty. How many?
So we're around 45 vehicles, some more that we wouldn't be able to change out. And currently our goal is to have a third of our fleet, of our patrol fleet by 2025.
That's
And
true.
that's not an unrealistic goal at this time. Additionally, we're looking at an electric ambulance. The police department oversees the emergency medical services.
Mhm.
And right now there's some in Europe that are very active. We're looking at a model for that. And what I didn't mention earlier, we have been approved and we're going to be moving forward with our second Tesla as soon as we place the order this year. And we're ready to move on that right away.
That's awesome.
Will that also be a 340?
We're looking, between Charlie and I, we're looking at the Y, which is the smaller SUV.
So if if a police fleet is interested in moving forward, and as you said, they'll your phone will be flooded right after this, and they'll ask you their questions, one-on-one perhaps. But if an officer is interested in moving forward, a chief is interested in moving forward, what would you say? Like, could you just sort of like name, is there like a list of steps they should take? Do they call Tesla first? Do they look at the charging infrastructure first? Do they figure out where the car is going to be parked? Do they look at, who's going to be using it? Do they form their team? And I know there's probably a lot of different ways to go about it, but are there some keys? Like, what is the first 5 steps? You've got this amazing audience here with you today, and they're all probably wondering, well, how could we do what they do? But how could they get started? What would be a couple of first steps that they could take?
Definitely the obvious one, which I stated earlier, is having the support of the town administration, because it's very hard to try to start something up like this if it's an uphill battle going into the governing bodies that will finance these projects. I think they have a little bit of a head of the curve approach because they can show some of these numbers, and we made sure that these numbers were not produced out of our police offices, that they were scrutinized by both Sustainable Westport, by Barry, by our finance department. So these are real numbers that they can show their governing bodies of what work has been done and what the benefits are. The only other thing is relationships take a long time. So we have no problem helping out departments that are in the same position, because it took us quite a bit of time to get where we are, but we can certainly share those resources if we truly believe in what we're doing. And the only caution I would say is we're not here by any means pushing any specific dealers that do the outfitting, but go with somebody reputable to outfit the car that has experience in working with electric cars or has the aptitude in their service people to work on something. These are highly sophisticated vehicles with some very sensitive parts when it comes to the electrical system. And there can be some setbacks in trying to do things in your own garage or without a reputable garage that has experience in doing this.
So we're just about at the top of the hour, but one just quick question, just to end us up today. If the chief of police in a town or municipality is not interested really in doing this, but maybe there's a lieutenant or an officer who is, what would be your advice for them to talk to the chief first? Or what if there's, resistance from the chief? If it's not the chief, then how would you suggest somebody would move forward if they really felt it was the best thing for the town and for the fleet in general?
Look, speaking for Connecticut and other chiefs, I mean, we network with chiefs throughout the country and similarities and differences. I don't think there's a single person out there that would not entertain at least looking at the model. Like I said, this may not fit to all. Extreme cold locations might have some issues. Extreme heat locations may have some issues. They may have limited fleets that they don't have the option that if there's a power outage, they can. So every department or every municipality may have their own challenges. And this is certainly easier. The bigger the department, the more you can diversify. And we're very fortunate that we are big enough that we can diversify. But I would say if somebody's passionate about it, I think presenting it to your chief or the higher ups within the community, I just don't see how somebody can at least spend the time to entertain that this truly works.
Terrific. Well, we just want to thank you.
Excuse me,
Yes. Mhm.
Daphne.
Yeah.
Alex in the chat had wanted to speak up and had a comment. So I don't know if you just want to let him ask his question before we close.
Okay, we got about 30 seconds, so go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
Hi, how are you? So I'll just hit a couple things. My biggest issues with certain vehicles that are, unfortunately the electric cars, is equipment space, the size of the officer for officer comfort, prisoner space, snow operations, and truly life cycles. Although we have industry life cycles, there are communities like the one that I work in currently that we're keeping our Ford utility vehicles, around 7 to 8 years. And, taxpayers do not want to invest the capital money in rotating these vehicles out. So those are obstacles that we have, but equipment space is a premium for everything that my department, that I represent has inside those cars. And then it's the officers getting the buy-in from them. I have one hybrid Ford utility, and I have heard so many complaints about the officers not liking certain things about it that are just, it kills me to hear what they complain about, because I just, it's like saying you want to go work for UPS, but you don't like the color brown. They're not going to paint the van different color just for you. So that's my only comment, moving into this arena. Eventually we'll all be in it, but it's difficult making that change and getting the end user to buy in, not the admin, of the police department, but the end users. And a lot of them are represented by unions. So we have to get that thrown on the table as well.
Thank you so much for bringing up those barriers and obstacles, because it's always so important to name those, to recognize those, and to work through them. So that was brilliant. And thank you so much for participating and for sharing. Well, we are at the top of the hour. We will be sending you this, the link to the recording. We will be sending you additional tools and resources, and we will be staying in touch with you to help you in any way we can to support electrification of your police fleet. So thank you so much. We want to just a big round of applause for Chief Kaskidis, and to Officer Sampson, and to Barry Kresh. Thank you all so much to our guest speakers for joining us today. And thank you so much for our participants for being here with us today. So we look forward to seeing you again, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Daphne and company at Live Green, Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.